Morning. Thanks for being here for today's town hall meeting. A few things today. First, I got a couple of questions about resident mask wearing and whether we consider it mandatory. So I'll talk about that and say that while I haven't specifically said it's mandatory for residents to wear masks when they come out of their apartments and go through the building, the only reason I haven't said that is because it's impossible for us to enforce, right? But what I will continue to say is residents should be wearing masks when they come out of their apartments, when they're going through the hallways, when they're going to the mailboxes, doing whatever they're doing. Please, 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 you should be wearing a mask. And we'll continue to reiterate that. I'm going to talk about some of the things that we're planning for reopening, and I can tell you that there's going to be more people in the halls, of course, and so please wear a mask. We do, and I do it every day. If I see a resident who is not wearing a mask, I, as politely as I can, encourage them to go get their mask, wear their mask, have their mask, 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 mask. So it's been proven over time that it really does work. You've heard me talk over the last couple of town hall meetings about the testing that's being implemented by the state of New York for all of our staff associated with skilled nursing or assisted living. And we've had to do a lot of preparations for that leading up to when that testing will begin, which is next Wednesday. So this is the testing that's being mandated by the state of New York. Department of Health, again, I want to stress by saying we believe in testing. And so the testing component of this is great. The fact that there's multiple tests that have to be done in the same week and some of the other planning challenges that are associated with this are continue to be very difficult, not only for us, but for nursing homes all over the state. So I'll just leave you with that. Our full-time staff have to be tested twice a week. That'll start next Wednesday. Our part-time staff, per the mandate from the state of New York, are tested once a week. We actually had to hire staff to do that and reconfigure some stuff to make that happen. That'll happen here, and of course it'll happen at Gate Circle as well. So I just want to make sure everybody realizes that we are going to be in full compliance of that testing requirement as per the state of New York. I met with the resident council yesterday. I thought it was a good discussion. We actually met right in this room. We were all about 8 to 10 feet apart. It felt a little bit normal. Certainly, many of the folks that I saw in this room yesterday I haven't seen in 2 months. So at least we were able to have a discussion, and even though we couldn't see each other's mouths move because everybody had a mask on, we were able to have a good discussion. I can tell you I discussed with them a bunch of different possibilities for the reopening of Canterbury Woods at both sites here and at Gate Circle. We had great discussion. I'll go through some of the things that we talked about today. So the first thing that we talked about is dining services, and I can tell you that that's the first thing that we are going to open. Excuse me for a second. That was an itch. But everything we do, and starting with dining services, is going to be baby steps. And pretty much had an agreement with the resident council that that's the way to go. And I'm certainly open to taking feedback from all of our residents. So please, I'll shout out my email at the end of this, as most of you know it by now, but open for suggestions and so on by all of our residents. So dining services, we're pointing towards, our goal is mid-June. And I think I've alluded to it here, but I'll have more information to come. It will be reservation only at all 3 sites. 2 of the 3 sites, Gate Circle and the clubhouse, are reservation only now anyways. That'll be a change for us here, or change for the residents here in Williamsville for the main dining room. So it'll be reservation only. We have yet to decide if it's going to be here in the main dining room is typically lunch and dinner. We've yet to decide if it's going to continue to be lunch and dinner here in the main dining room in Williamsville, so more to come on that. Actually meeting with Paul at 11 o'clock today as we continue to move through this planning process. So reservation only 2 residents per table, and there will only be a small percentage of residents in the dining room at any given time. So if you're used to a full house, it's going to be 25 to 40% of what a full house might be. So that may force us to have to space out the amount of times that you can come down to the dining room on a weekly basis, dining rooms, and so we're going to work through that process and do the math so that everybody gets equal access. But we're certainly not going to have the dining rooms full, and we're certainly not going to have 4 people at a table. So that's part of the planning process that we're working through. I don't really have any more details on that at all. It's at this point it's a math equation, right? And it's a scheduling logistics that we're working through. I can tell you that for the cafes, both here and at Gate Circle, right now we're delivering out of them. The opening thought for them is to change them to grab and go, which we had initially at the pandemic. I don't know the timing of that. I can tell you we will not be opening the cafes to full service sit down initially. Again, baby steps. Just because we don't open the cafes to full service sit down in June doesn't mean we're not going to do it in July or August. But at least in the month of June and with our early, as we kind of dip our toes in the water here, the only change that you might see for the cafes is you'll still be able to get delivery for everything, dinner and lunch, but if people want to do grab and go in the cafe, we think we might go to that level. Now, I also want to make sure everybody knows that for dining, no guests will be allowed. No visitors, no guests will be allowed for dining. It will only be for residents. And it goes back to talk about risk. It's how much risk are the residents and the organization willing to accept as we continue to go forward here. The more we open up, the more residents are moving through the communities. Obviously, the more risk is involved in the process. And so that's going to be kind of an ongoing discussion, right? Is how much risk are we willing to accept? I said this to the resident council yesterday, and you've heard me say it before. Folks, it's not if we get a case of COVID, it's when. And I think it's unrealistic to say that we're going to go through this entire pandemic without having a COVID positive case, whether it's independent or the health center. We can hope, we can pray, we can continue to work as hard as we can, which we will, to allay that, but I think it's unrealistic, especially because we have to grapple with the possibility of opening up, or the reality that we're going to have to open up some services here. I also say that as of today, there are no cases. Canterbury Woods has no cases in the health centers and no cases of independent as of today. I know I'm jumping around a little bit. I apologize for that. I can tell you within the dining experience, what you can expect is, again, 2 to a table. You can expect no linens. You can expect everything to be thrown away. So the menus will be thrown away. The utensils that you're getting now that are prepackaged, that will continue. Napkins, all that stuff that traditionally in a formal dining experience is linen and tableware and so on. Please don't expect that initially. It will be throwaway items. and we'll be doing a ton of cleaning as the tables turn over and things such as that. Other things that we talked about with the resident council yesterday and continue to be on our radar, the security systems that we put in place, specifically locking down this campus here in Williamsville and having a security person at the main entrance. That'll stay in place for the foreseeable future. The resident council was pretty much in total agreement that, at least initially, we're not going to open up the campuses to visitors any more than we do now. And I don't know how long that'll last. You've heard me talk about the possibility of doing on-site testing and antibody testing. And so when we have the ability to do that, maybe that is the time that we will be able to allow more visitors on the campus. But as of right now, we have no plans to open up to more visitors, at least through mid-June. Also, we are not going to allow resident group meetings at this point. So, committees, resident association meetings, Canterbury University, things like that, we're not going to allow those to move forward at least through mid to late June. Again, baby steps, seeing how things go, seeing how dining goes, seeing what happens in the greater community, right? Seeing how the virus is being contained in the greater community. These are all the things that we're going to continue to watch and going to continue to work with our residents, work with the resident council to take those baby steps that we're talking about. I am planning on opening the fitness center at Gate Circle that's been closed, and to do that, it'll kind of work like this. We'll have a staff person down there 3 to 4 hours a day, several days a week. That person will be there, and one resident at a time at Gate Circle will be allowed to use the fitness center, and then our staff member will be there. She will clean it, and then somebody else. So she'll probably end up doing it by appointment, kind of an appointment over a fitness center. We're working on that with Tracy and Susan, but that's kind of what we're looking at so that we can open up that service, but also keep it safe and keep it sanitized. So more to come on that. I think that's all I have today. Again, please reach out to me if you have questions. My email address is rwallace@echa.org. And everybody stay safe and have a nice weekend.